Go ahead, try one, big shot. Figures.
Can I bowl another one?
Go ahead. I'm going to the bathroom.
All right, well, welcome to Movie Strange. As you can see, it's only two of us. Al could not make it tonight. He's got some things going on, and he couldn't leave his lair. So it's just Drew and I. Hey, Drew.
Hey, Ralph, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Okay, this could go on all night. I just want to bring up one thing before we get started with the show. And we usually acknowledge people who pass away, and I'd like to acknowledge somebody. At the time of this recording, it was about a week ago, somebody passed away that I'd like to talk about, and that's Rush Limbaugh. And normally when we talk about people on this show that have passed away, we do it in reverence and we express how much we're going to miss them. And I just want to say, good riddance. The guy was a terrible human being, fantastic broadcaster who created the right-wing talk radio, started in 1988, syndication. So I'll give him that, but that's all I'm going to give him. He was a xenophobic, homophobic, racist pig who denigrated Michael J. Fox's disease, who denigrated, he would do AIDS, call out AIDS, people who had passed away from AIDS. Just a horrible, horrible human being. And I just like to acknowledge that I'm glad the guy's off the planet. And every once in a while, it's good to see certain people leave the planet, and he's one of them. So I know we're going to piss off some people probably, but I don't give a shit. Good riddance. That's all I want to say. So
yeah, I'll just add that I think you can acknowledge that he was, as you said, an incredibly innovative and influential broadcaster, and also that he used that power that he built to genuinely awful, destructive ends. And I think a lot of what's happened in the past decades in this country that have pulled people apart has been what he built. I don't know if you saw, there was a documentary, I cannot remember the name of it, I'm just thinking of it at this moment, but it was basically a guy, or maybe it was a woman, and the filmmaker was basically documenting their father's detachment from reality. And the changes in his personality as he got sucked into Fox News and Rush Limbaugh and the kinds of things he got certain about and confrontational about and stuff. And that is all, I mean, I think it's genuine tragedy that what this man has done to discourse in this country. And so what's that saying? Don't celebrate his death, mourn his life.
That's a good way to put it. The fact is in Florida, they wanted to half-mast the flags, and congresswomen are trying to say it. It's like, come on, enough. Good riddance. It's over. Move on. Now, the problem is we're going to have Rush Limbaugh wannabes going to spring up all over the place. And there was already a bunch of them. But now you get some people actually in Congress who want to become Rush Limbaugh wannabes, and it's just disgusting. Anyway, enough politics, but I just wanted to get that out.
Thank you for being honest. It is a big piece of broadcast news as much as anything else. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, back to the show. I don't know how we do it, but we do it. So last week, the 4 words that we had were 8 words. I always say 4, but it's 8 because it's 4 that I end up picking.
You only picked 4 of them. Okay.
So these were the 4 we had. Resort, sassy, buxom, arousal, football, CIA, dancing, hostage. And of course, I picked this one. Football, CIA, dancing, hostage. Which turned out to be Drew's film.
Yes, it was.
And before we go any further, Drew can talk about his film. Please subscribe, hit the like button, do all that stuff. Maybe we'll get some views out of this, and maybe someday we'll be able to do this for a living. But for now, take a look, and let's see what we got. So what's the film, Drew?
The film is Buffalo 66 from 1998 by the genuinely distinct filmmaker Vincent Gallo. And I had not watched this movie in many years. I saw it in the theater in 1998 in LA when it came out. And I think I watched it. I own it on DVD, and I think I watched it sometime probably 15 years ago or so, and I haven't seen it since then. And I watched it again so we could have this conversation, and it still just retains all the qualities and all the things that I really enjoy about it. And I would love to know what you thought about it too.
Well, I mean, I knew about this film, never saw this film. I knew about Vincent Gallo, never watched any of his films. I knew about the Brown Bunny, that infamous film that involves some fellatio, real fellatio, I think.
Yes.
So I knew about it. Now, having said that, I'm so glad I watched it because it just hit on so many different things. Nothing personally, but just from a filmmaking standpoint and the things he was doing, I just found it a really well done film. And I'm glad you brought it. I'm glad you brought it. I'm glad I picked it. So why don't we show the trailer first, and then we get into the discussion. Sound good?
What is this? Is this a shifter car? You think that's funny? I'm used to luxury cars. I drive cars that shift themselves. My cars shift themselves. I need you to come to my parents' house with me and pretend to be my wife.
Did Billy ever tell you how we met? Billy's the nicest husband in the whole world.
Don't touch me.
What do you mean, don't touch me?
Don't
You're supposed to
touch
be
me.
husband and wife. No, really. I'm the luckiest girl.
What did you say? 1, 2, 3, get out of the car.
I fell madly in love with him.
I haven't won a championship since 1966, and I missed that game because that's the day I had Billy.
Did you like Buffalo too?
If you fail, take advance to court, and very evil and very bad things are gonna happen.
Didn't you go to jail or something? Yeah, but he was innocent.
Remember that guy Wood? No good. I'd really like to find him.
You still gonna do that bad thing you said you were gonna do?
He missed that field goal on purpose. He got paid money, and he missed it on purpose.
Hey, tell somebody to turn up the heat.
Where's the girl?
I'm his wife.
She's not my wife. What did I just tell you?
I'm not looking, just imagining.
I picked her up hitchhiking. I'm a free guy, you know, that's not my style.
These photos are us in love, spanning time. Just look like you like me. That's it. Can you do that?
Come here and give me a hug.
Whew.
I know what you're thinking. The story's hard to believe, right?
You should have seen him. He was so beautiful.
Yeah, a lot of people in this film too. A lot of good people, good actors. People
That
are always
trailer
interesting.
is both an accurate representation of some of the very funny stuff in the movie, and also not an accurate representation of the overall experience and tone of watching the movie. But yeah, it's full of people. Vincent Gallo is Billy Brown, the lead character, and he wrote and directed and edited, and depending on who you listen to, was responsible for the cinematography as well. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And it has Angelica Houston and Ben Gazzara, and Christina Ricci is his co-star. And then you can see in the trailer, you've got Mickey Rourke and Rosanna Arquette. They're in just one scene each, in important scenes and memorable scenes. And there's a bunch of stuff like that where Kevin Corrigan plays Billy's friend, Goon, who'd rather be called Rocky. And Kevin Corrigan never has a scene, I don't think, with anybody else. He's just on the phone in varying stages of undress. And
He does the one scene. Well, he does that one scene in the prison where he's giving him the mail. That's the only time we see him.
That's right. There's a
Only
flashback.
time
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
yeah. So
and you
also
forgot
I
to
wanna
mention.
say,
wait, I'm sorry. You forgot to mention.
Enjoying
What?
my hot chocolate. Layla likes her
Just
hot
like-
chocolate as well.
And you didn't mention Jan Michael Vincent playing the bowling alley
Oh, right.
owner.
Yeah, Jan
And
Michael
all these
Vincent
people.
in a heartbreaking man in general, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
In a kind of really sad role of a man who is trying to be a good friend and then disappears from the movie again.
Well,
So
he improvises a couple scenes and they move on.
and that's it.
So,
yeah,
yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
That's okay. No, not at all. Listen, we did. We've been on other shows together, and we recently did a thing about sports movies, and this would definitely be on my short list to pitch as a sports movie.
It's he's quite an athlete. This guy too.
Well,
Gallo.
it's
Just
the
ask him.
movie is shaped. Oh yes, we'll talk about him too.
Yeah.
But I mean, the movie is shaped by NFL football. It's about the Buffalo Bills and how the importance of the Buffalo Bills to this family shaped his entire life, and then how the actual events of a football game shaped his entire adult life. The character, it's about him basically betting that the Buffalo Bills will win the Super Bowl, and then they don't because they miss a field goal.
Wide
And
right.
in the movie, the kicker is Scott Woods, and that's based on Scott Norwood,
Scott
who
Norwood,
really
yeah.
did miss the field goal and lost the Super Bowl for the Buffalo Bills. I mean, at this, I don't even know, what is that, 30 years ago or something?
Third. Well, I don't know what the year, but then they went on to lose the next 3 Super Bowls in a row.
Wow.
They made
so
they made
really
it to
set
4 in a row,
standard.
lost all 4. So yes, and that's what I was amazed. I had no idea that Buffalo '66 had to do with the Buffalo Bills until I saw this film, which is because Brown Bunny. I don't some of these titles you go what, and then I realized, oh my God, it's all about the Buffalo Bills and Scott Norwood's wide right. I mean, essentially, Ace Ventura took that same trick, and that kicker went wide right at the end of that game. So that's used a lot.
Well,
and this one, yeah.
I mean, Vincent Gallo's from Buffalo. He said the movie is inspired by his upbringing, that the parents in the movie are inspired by his parents, which is a genuinely terrifying thought. And he shot the scenes at his parents' house, at his actual house that
That's
he
what
grew
he
up in.
said.
I don't know if his parents still lived there at the time that they did it or if they rented it back or something, but that is the house that Vincent Gallo grew up in. And
He did say in an interview, somebody asked him if it was autobiographical, and he said no, it was not autobiographical. He
and
did
then
shoot in
other
his house.
interviews He said it is, so you never know.
Yeah. And his parents don't come off real well in this film.
Well, I think that the fact that he says that it's inspired by his parents, it's terrifying, but it's also revealing, because it tells you why the character Billy Brown ends up where he ends up, and it also may tell us a lot about how Vincent Gallo was shaped, because when you look at entertainment and people who've had varying degrees of success and artistic success and commercial success, Vincent Gallo's definitely a one of a kind type of figure. I think. I mean, he's been an artist, a performance artist, a filmmaker, all these different things in different capacities. For gosh, I mean, he's been doing this since the early 80s. I think he worked with Jean-Michel Basquiat, and he did all this street performances and all these different things. So he's only made 3.
Yeah, he was
feature films.
breakdancing. He was. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. He was
No, it's fine.
breakdancing.
He's just amazing.
There's like Soul Train or shows like that where you see him in the back. I don't know if it was Soul Train, but shows where breakdancers are in the backgrounds. He was all over the place. So yeah, he's a talented dude. I mean, there's no question. He shows off his talent. His bowling talent was pretty good. I mean, I have to admit.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I know that you are a bowler, and he looked. I mean,
his form was yes.
It looked like at least some of those strikes he hit them.
Oh no, he hit those. Those were him. They didn't break
looked
that
real to
camera.
me.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the one you could tell, the one he missed that ended up in the gutter, you could tell he was throwing that on purpose. So
yeah,
the other ones
that
were,
was acting.
That was his acting, right? And I know he rides motorcycles, and he talks about playing football. Like tag football or flag football or whatever. But tackle football without pads in New York City. So he's got a very, like you were saying, a very diverse background, a crazy background with music. I know he's got a huge Laserdisc collection, huge record collection. The guy's like he's an amazing artist.
Apparently he's also an authority on
everything,
sort of classic recording equipment and techniques.
Yeah,
like he has a house full of that stuff to go with his 35,000 pieces of vinyl and all that kind of stuff. And it's really, he's a real. I'm totally blanking on the word. I don't
Renaissance
know why
man. He's a Renaissance. I mean,
that's a good phrase. I mean, he can do all these different things, and he can do a lot of them well. Now, it may not be to everyone's taste, because you could watch this movie and you could say, I don't like it, but you can't say that it's incompetent or that it wasn't made with real intent. I mean, this is, I feel like I've been saying this a lot lately, but it's absolutely true. One of my favorite things in the movies is a writer-director's debut that's assured and confident and distinct right out of the gate. Promising Young Woman did that for me recently. Other movies have done. I love it. And this is a movie that is, minutes in, it's establishing all these different things that are going to feel fill the rest of the experience of the movie. I mean, the movie starts with he gets out of prison and he really has to pee. And it builds tension that he can't find a bathroom. And it's funny, but also you're like, this is awful. Like,
but you know how he feels.
out.
Everybody knows that feeling of having to go and not being able to go. And you actually feel, you felt it. Right.
Yeah, well, for such a movie with such strange stuff in it, a lot of stuff, there's a lot of relatable stuff as well. And, I mean, he actually goes back to the prison and says, can you let me in to use the bathroom? And they're like, you can't come back to the prison. Yeah. You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so get into the plot a little bit. He comes out of prison, and how does he meet Christina Ricci, who he wants her to fake? You know, in the trailer you see he wants her to be fake that he's his wife. Explain that a little bit, and then we'll get into him a little more, because he's the interesting part of this whole experience I had watching this film, because I went down the rabbit hole of more Vincent Gallo stuff. And as crazy as the guy is, and as obnoxious as he is, I'm fascinated by this guy because I just think he's a true artist. But give us a little plot so we can, you know.
Sure. So as I said, the movie begins with he's out of prison. I think that he's in, it's in Buffalo. They shot everything in Buffalo. He's at the, I think it's called Gowanda Detention Center, which is actually closing this year. So if you want to do that Buffalo 66 film locations tour, you better get on it. And he has to go to the bathroom, and he can't find a bathroom. And the place that he finally finds a bathroom, he does not ask permission. He just walks through a dance class at a dance studio and goes to the bathroom, has an unpleasant encounter, and then he can't pee. But he comes out.
Well, but back up. You got to explain the one scene, because he's always talking about I guess his penis is very important to him, as it is for all of us.
Yes.
But there's that scene in the bathroom.
Yeah. He gets into a moment of conflict with the guy at the other urinal and says he keeps looking at him, but the guy really is looking at him and commenting on just how large Vincent Gallo is, and how Billy Brown is. And Billy Brown doesn't care for the attention. I think we know Vincent Gallo would appreciate the attention. Right. Billy Brown doesn't care for the attention, puts his hands on the guy. But basically what he does, you've learned that he has gotten out of prison, and then he calls his parents, and he's talking about how he's just flown in, he's just here for the day. So they have no idea that he's been in prison. They know that he's out in the world jet setting or something, and his mother, essentially on the phone, bullies him into coming to visit with his wife, who doesn't exist. So you need somebody to pretend to be his wife. So of course he just kidnaps Christina Ricci from the dance studio.
Seems normal.
And they get in the car, and then he's like, "You got to do something for me." And then they're just kind of off to the races.
Yeah, and it just gets weirder and weirder, and the weirder it gets, the more you're into the couple. Like as they start, it just becomes a love story. It's ridiculous. I mean, it makes zero sense. The parents are nuts.
Surprising.
So it's Angelica Houston plays his mother, obsessed. Buffalo Bill's obsessed.
The parents are worse than nuts. I mean, his parents are awful people, and the way that they treat him or ignore him. I mean, he literally knocks on the door and hasn't seen his family in the 5 years he's been in prison. They don't know that he's been in prison, but they haven't seen him. And Ben Gazzara opens the door, sees him, and then just walks back into the house.
Yeah,
and you know they are such clearly drawn characters and such awful people, and you can immediately see, you know, like his mother is played by Angelica Houston, and an amazing wig, and she's obsessed with Buffalo Bill to the point where she missed a game because he was born, and that's the game that they lost with the field goal miss, and they're just not interested in.
And him. Says at the table, "I wish he was never born."
Right.
Because that guy missed the field goal.
And then they talk about him like he's not there because it's clear that he just isn't important. And he has terrible flashbacks about like his father killing his dog.
I wanted to mention those. I thought it was a well done use of flashback. I mean, technically the way he did it, because he did a thing where the flashback kind of, you know, the square comes up, and he's talking about he mentions the dog. Yeah, the dog. The father, Ben Gazzara says, his father says, the dog ran away, and then you see the flashback, and you realize Ben Gazzara choked the dog. Killed the dog in front of his kid. Right.
Because he kept peeing inside or something like that. So, and his kid is like, Billy's like 5 years old or something. It's ridiculous.
I mean, his parents definitely shaped what happened to him down the road. Obviously, that's what's going on. And I think there was a flashback about the mother, I think. Definitely the father. I can't remember if the mother had a flashback, but.
Well, it all kind of, in a very clever way, it all kind of runs together. Like you said, I mean, we're talking in squares right now.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that. But the way that the image actually grows, and that there's different aspect ratios and of different times and different things in it, you're not really conscious. You don't. My experience wasn't I watched the movie and then I said, oh, he's now doing this with the camera instead of that. You just sort of float in his memories. And it feels very real. Like somebody says something, and then you would remember it, and you would see it in your head.
That's a good way to put it.
Conversation would continue, and it's very clever filmmaking. It's very
well
clever.
done technique. No, I was very impressed with that, and like you said, his first film. So
yeah.
Now,
well, and then the it's crazy because the whole movie is all these scenes that build tension, and it's not like Uncut Gems where it just cranks and cranks and cranks and cranks and cranks. There are ebbs and flows, but it's constantly building tension, and it's going in a very dark direction. But it's kind of funny because the movie begins with him kidnapping someone, which is an objectively bad thing, and he forces her into her car, and then he makes her drive because he can't drive stick, and then they go to the parents' house, and this dining room table scene is way more tension and way more upsetting than the kidnapping that we just saw, because that's how awful these people are. But even in that scene, the whole thing feels like an homage to the movies of Yasujiro Ozu, who did all these domestic Japanese dramas.
Okay.
And the way that very distinct way that you see the characters frontally against the background, and then it goes around them, like it doesn't move, it cuts between them, and it's kind of jarring to do that. But that's what Ozu does in his movies, and you can see on Christina Ricci's car, her license plate starts with OZU.
I was working as
Ozu.
for the CIA.
So I mean, that's obviously that's intentional, but that's also telling you this is a guy who's making his first movie who is steeped in other film.
Yeah,
and he knows and intuits a lot of cinematic language that just pays off for him.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, I was watching this, and the cinematography was good. I mean, it was well done. This overhead shots they're doing, all kind of, even the stuff in the car you're talking about. And then he goes on, I guess after the film, trash the cinematographer, trash Christina Ricci, just eviscerated these people.
Well, he was apparently terrible to them while they were making the movie as well.
Corrigan, you mentioned Corrigan, who has nothing but positive things to say. I watched a 40-minute interview after this that he has nothing but positive. Now, he didn't ask for he didn't want a credit on the film. He thought this was, and actually they talked about it, and Vincent Gallo's like, I'm a little insulted that you didn't want this on you didn't name, but it's kind of genius because that people are going to remember that. They're going to remember that forever, that you didn't want your credit on this, because his part's kind of small. I don't really know what he was upset about. He had to do most of those shots in his underwear and felt uncomfortable. I don't know.
Yes, his character was definitely slow. And I mean, Vincent Gallo, Billy Brown, Vincent Gallo's character, is very cruel to people. And one of the people he's cruel to, just the things that he says.
Yeah.
He's quite cruel about to Kevin Corrigan's character, Goon, about basically he's dumb and he's slow and he's less than. And Vincent Gallo, I think his character feels less than about everything all the time. So of course you just find somebody weaker and smaller to dump on as well.
But I mean, as an actor, like as Kevin Corrigan as the actor, what was it about that part, I wonder, that just made him feel like this was going to be a bad choice? I don't know. And like I said, nothing but positive. And he knew on the set that everybody was uptight and tense, that Vincent Gallo's walking around trashing everybody. And I guess Gallo had these things in his head. When you get those things in your head and you're trying to be the one that's in charge of everything and controlling everything, that, it's your show. I understand. I can, not to that degree, but you get that feeling of kind of ownership that you want everybody to be on the same page as you.
Well, especially when you're the writer and the director and the producer and the editor, and you have, this was made for, I think, $1.5 million.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be beholden to some much larger organization because they gave you $15 or $20 million. So they don't even make movies at that level anymore, I guess. But I think the real thing with the the crapping on the people that he worked with, the cinematography part is interesting because he originally had Dick Pope shooting the movie, and he's done a lot of very big movies. And then Dick Pope said, "Well, I'm not going to shoot this movie if you use the kind of film that you want to use, because if you want to tell everybody what that film was, it was definitely an unusual thing."
It's called Reversal, and to be 100% honest, I'm not quite sure what the problem is with shooting that way. It must be the processing or something is very expensive. I should know. I'm sorry, I should know, but
that's okay. Part of it is the processing, but also it's, as far as I can tell, it's essentially still photography film.
Yeah.
And so Vincent Gallo had to go to Kodak. I think it's Kodak, and special order something that had never been made before, which is, I want to shoot a movie on this film with this process, which is why when you're watching the movie, I mean, you haven't really seen anything that looks like it.
It has an interesting look. There's no question.
Very striking.
Yeah.
It almost feels like an older movie, except it's too sharp in some ways.
Well, the other thing it
doesn't look like The French Connection or something.
No, but it highlighted colors that normally wouldn't. Like, he had red, specifically his red shoes, because there's tons of scenes of him running across the highway, and he focuses on those red boots of his. And there's something like that scene in the car has a very gray tone to it. And certain colors pop through. And I don't know if that's what he was going for, because certainly those red boots. Now, there's a scene that happens at the end where he goes into the kicker. I think his last name was Scott, right? In the film.
Scott Wood. Well, yeah, let's talk about that, because let's back up just so that everybody knows what we're talking about. Essentially, what he's decided, he's just gotten out of prison. And because he bet, he bet Mickey Rourke as his bookie, and he bet on the Bills to win, and they lost. So Mickey Rourke said, "Well, you need to take the rap for one of my guys, and you need to go to prison for 5 years." So in the movie, when Vincent Gallo has just gotten out of prison and says, "Well, I'm innocent," he actually was
innocent, right?
Yeah, so that's unusual,
right?
But he basically decides that this kicker, Scott Woods,
has to
ruined his life.
Yes,
and he's going to kill him.
Right.
And so as you go through the movie, you realize just how serious he is about doing that he's had a gun stored at the bowling alley, that he's trying to track down, okay, so Scott Woods owns a strip club. When's he going to be there? He's basically building his entire day around, because it's all in one day too, which is crazy.
Right.
Around, I'm going to get to the strip club because that's where I know he's going to be. I'm going to be there when he's there, and I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
And so he does, sort of. Good
scene. Well done scene.
Yeah.
And I guess as a piece of music, again, I'm not a music guy either. Look at me, no Reversal film music. I think there's a piece of music he uses that Kevin Corrigan said he wanted that piece of music in a film, and he designed that whole scene around that piece of music. I think is the scene he was talking about, and that's a well done scene. The still frame thing that he did, and I don't know if that's what the whole Reversal idea was. Because that was ahead of its time. You didn't see that idea later where you're freezing a frame and being able to move around that frame in 3D space. That was pretty.
It almost looks like what they did in the Matrix, but I think it's a lot more lo-fi than that.
It's very lo-fi, but extremely well done. And and then his whole attitude after that scene changes. I mean, he's euphoric in that donut shop after that scene.
Let's talk about that, because the movie is. It moves in a certain direction, and then it does not end the way that you think it would end.
That's right.
And I said that the movie is all these different degrees of tension building on each other. There are ebbs and flows, but there's tension. I mean, he has a good time when he's bowling. Then she gets a strike, and he turns into a schmuck again, all that kind of stuff. And she tap dances while he's bowling, and there's sort of these dreamlike parts of the movie that you're not even really aware what's going on.
Ben Gazzara is singing.
Well, which is actually the voice of Vincent Gallo Sr.
His father.
Which is interesting. Yeah. But the whole movie is this growing levels of tension until you get to the hotel, because by the end of the movie, this woman that he's kidnapped, and then she has gone to his family's, and she has lied about how they're married, and he works for the CIA and all this other stuff. She's decided that she actually kind of cares for him.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a character she really is in this movie compared to him. It's definitely a movie about Billy Brown. It's definitely Vincent Gallo's movie about the character that he's playing. But Christina Ricci clearly comes from a place that's also fragile and sad. And these two kind of broken people find each other, even though he is very off-putting, and it's the whole thing is kind of unsettling. But they basically agree, let's get a room and lay down for a few hours. And that's what they do. They take a bath and then they lay down, and it's very quiet and kind of sweet. And he agrees to do that because he just has to make sure he gets up at 2:00 in the morning to go and kill this guy.
Right.
And something happens to them when he is with her, and he doesn't want to be touched. And don't kiss me, I'll shake your hand, but that's enough. And like, I'm going to be in the bath, you want to come in, but you can't look at me. Like, he's clearly uncomfortable in his own skin, and he's really annoying to be around. He's very caustic and unpleasant. But she tells him that she wants him to come back. Get me a hot chocolate. He says he's going to get coffee. She knows that's a lie. Get me a hot chocolate. Promise you'll come back. And then he goes to the club and he kills this guy. And then he shoots himself in the head. And then it kind of reverses, and he's standing in the club looking at Scott Woods, and Scott Woods offers him a drink, and Vincent Gallo kind of relaxes for the first time in the whole movie, and then he turns around and he leaves. Right. So he didn't do it. And like you said, he goes to this donut shop where he's just floating.
Right.
And it's genuinely sweet. Like, it's really, and because he's going to go back to Christina Ricci, and this romance has been born out of this really kind of ugly beginning of kidnapping and this really bizarre day. And these two, broken people came together. And it kind of reminded me of, if you haven't seen this, you definitely should. Punch Drunk Love.
I have not.
That's Paul Thomas Anderson's movie with Adam Sandler and Emily Watson. And it's really remarkable. It's remarkable because he made the movie and it's only like an hour and a half. So that's remarkably short for him.
Right.
But it is about two people that really, as characters, they're very annoying and they're very unpleasant, and you don't wish them ill, but you wouldn't want anything to do with them, but they find other people that fit with them. And all of a sudden this movie has a really happy ending. And I don't think it does. I think it works.
Well, it works because the way he shaped it, the scene that goes on in the middle of the chunk, the middle scene at the house with his parents, told everything we needed to know about this kid and what he grew up with. And it immediately takes away the idea that and he's lucky that he met somebody, Christina Ricci, who was crazy enough to kind of fall into it and fall in love with him. If she hadn't been that person, it wouldn't have worked. But she was. Obviously, he wrote it that way. So, maybe it's his dream girl or something. Who knows? But without that scene with the parents, obviously it's in there, I'd have no sympathy for the guy because he was just nuts. But now why he was nuts, and you understand the psychosis and his, everything that he was going through to get where he was, and the fact that he pulls that at the end and he walks away going, that Scott Woods wasn't a bad guy either. She actually said to her, seems like a nice guy.
Seems like a nice guy. Yeah. Well, he was surrounded by strippers and offering him a drink. So that's pretty hospitable. Right. I think the parents part is really crucial because what you see in the scene, at the end, it's really crucial. What you see in the scene is he kills Scott Woods in that very striking scene that we just talked about. And then he shoots himself. And then it cuts to a fresh grave and a headstone, and his parents are clearly at his graveside, and there's no one else there. And his mother is listening to a football game and screaming. And Ben Gazzara is like, "I'm cold, I'm hungry, let's get out of here." Yeah. And you realize, like, something. The way I read it is that there's this darkness and this death, and there's these people that you don't matter even when they're sitting next to your grave. You don't matter to them. But he does matter to someone. Yeah. He does matter to Christina Ricci's character, Layla. And he decides basically to live. Yeah. He just decides to live. He decides, then there's this joy, and he's a very good looking guy. He's this very infectious smile. It's like it's like he sheds this skin of this. Basically, to me, Christina Ricci showed him some kindness where no one really ever had.
True.
and gave him a kind of love and affection that you really should get from a healthy family, but he clearly doesn't get.
Yeah.
And the whole story pivots, and it feels real because he just needs a little bit of that kind of love. There are people who are nice to him, like Jim Nicol Vincent was nice to him. His friend Goon did him some favors and stuff, but this is like, she doesn't get anything out of it. I mean, my God, she's
That's what I was
kidnapped.
going to
There's
say.
times in the movie where she could have run away or driven away, and she doesn't. So she's pretty lonely too.
Yeah.
But they
saved
find
him.
each other. It's very sweet.
They found
She
each
did.
other.
She saved him.
She saved him.
Yeah.
And
It kind of reminded me of the movie Carol. I don't know if you saw that. That's
No.
Todd Haynes' movie with Rooney
No.
Mara and Kate Blanchett. It's an adaptation of the book The Price of Salt, and that's a movie that is it's a fantastic movie. It's a beautiful movie, but it's on a specific vector. Like, this is the kind of movie it is. This is how it's going to end. And then it has this major, I guess you could just call it a twist at the end. And it becomes something very different and beautiful and wonderful, and it works. And endings are hard. And endings that take a hard left are really hard. And this movie really delivers.
No, and I was expecting a completely different ending. I thought he'd go back to the hotel, she'd be gone, he blew it, and then he's back in the same despair.
Right.
It didn't end that way. It ended with now, who knows what's going to happen after it fades to black, because they're both nuts, basically, those two. But it doesn't matter. For this movie, it ended with him in that donut shop, all happy, and they found love. And I think it ends with comes up with them in a photo booth or something. I don't know. I forget. Or did it end freeze frame of them being happy?
Yeah, they did the photo booth at the bowling alley, which is one of many scenes where it's just him kind of just being an impatient jerk.
I think he was being
it's
him.
Really funny. Yeah, no, something like it's just really but it's really funny.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
Well,
like,
listen,
we love each other, but don't touch me. And we have these pictures have to show that we have a love that spans time. But don't kiss me. Don't do that.
Right.
You know, it's just.
I'll tell you what the film did for me. It made me appreciate Gallo, Vincent Gallo, and it made me, like I said, go down a rabbit hole. I knew about the Brown Bunny film. I knew all about that. Now I want to watch it, and I know it's not going to be as good as this one because of all the reviews I've read about it and heard about it. But it does make me interested in him and what he's doing or was doing. I don't know what he's doing now, if anything. There's videos of him in France. I listened to this 2-hour interview that someone did on the street with him. I just find him refreshingly honest, and who knows, he's probably a total jerk and tough to deal with. But I got to say, I'm in the Vincent Gallo thing now, and I want to find out more information. And when a movie does that for me, a movie that I hadn't seen and didn't want to see, that says something about the film, and I appreciate, what he did and the kind of stuff he pulled off in there. So I'm very glad I watched it. So.
Well, look, he's the kind of person that he promotes himself relentlessly and with a kind of arrogance that he can, on some level, back up when he makes his first movie. Is this movie and is this good?
Yeah.
And so there are definitely people like I don't know that I'd want to hang out with him, but there are people who are very memorable. New York seems to turn out a lot of these types of people.
Yeah.
Like, there's nobody quite like Vincent Gallo. There's nobody quite like Fran Lebowitz. There's nobody quite like, I don't know, Elliot Offen or something from Stern Show. I mean, like, there are these distinct people, and he is a real artist who made this beautiful movie. And I think it's one of those things where it's definitely it's like an independent 90s movie with that cast and all that kind of stuff, but it's also really kind of doing its own thing. And a movie that ends that way, that really shouldn't work, and it does work, I also think that's pretty special.
Well, the other thing is, you got the stones of a guy directing his first film. He's got Ben Gazzara sitting to his right, who's been directed by John Cassavetes, right? He's friends with Cassavetes, right? I think even Angelica Houston, probably her father. And this guy was probably the most confident dude doing this. And these guys are going, what are we doing? Ben Gazzara has to do that scene where he's mouth lipping the thing, but they do it. He does it in a way where it's a spotlight. Same with the tap dance in the bowling alley.
Yep.
And, you talk about a short guy. This is, how intimidated would you be by a guy that's been directed by Cassavetes, and it looks like Gallo didn't care. This is my vision. This is what I want to do. God, you got to respect somebody like that. Probably hated on the set, right? You walk away going, what a dick, but Jesus, he pulled it off.
Well, that's why Gallo cast him. I mean, that's a deliberate move. And so if you're going to do that, you're actually saying, I'm going to do a kind of a domestic drama
Yeah.
that Cassavetes did, and that Ozu did, but it isn't really like either of them.
Yeah.
And it's its own thing. And so, yeah, no, the stories that you hear, and I know you ran into a lot of this stuff in the interviews you watched and stuff. I mean, I think a Vincent Gallo film set sounds like an unpleasant place.
Yeah.
Perhaps the level of verbal abuse that really would not fly today, which is good that it wouldn't fly today. I mean, he called Christina Ricci fat and was very cruel.
Well,
to
the
a lot
stuff
of
he said
people.
about the cinematographer, and even Corrigan was saying that he would grab the makeup from the makeup artist and do Kevin Corrigan's makeup because it wasn't what he had in his own mind. So he pushed that person aside and he'd do it himself. So yeah, I'm sure he would be a pain in the ass to work with. But as a viewer watching this and listening to him, I just find it fascinating. Yeah. So
well,
I think that was
liked it.
Oh, I loved it, and I want to watch it again, more relaxed and not thinking about the show that we had to talk about it, and just kind of enjoy just what was going on. Because, like you said, that first scene where he comes out and it's like 8 to 10 minutes of him trying to find a place to go to the bathroom. I mean, that takes some stones. That's some good stuff.
Now it's time for 2 movies, 4 words.
On to the next film. Now, what's the story with the words here? What's going on?
Well, Uncle Al was trapped in his lair tonight, and he couldn't make it. I know he'll be back.
Okay.
But Uncle Al wields great power from his lair, but he's not here. So you're going to have 2 sets of 4 words, and they're both from me.
Okay.
So if you can't make it, you snooze, you lose type of thing. So
all right.
I know
so now
we'll see Uncle Al again, but I've given you 2 sets of 4 words, and you don't have to try to figure out who gave them to you because it was me.
I can relax. Excellent. Okay. Well, let me. Here we go for the next set of 2x4. So let me. All right. These are the 4. These are 4, right? Yep. Okay.
Yep. That's them.
So we got abduction, deception, betrayal, nudity. Ooh. Stress, butt stuff, daddy. Okay. I'm going with abduction, deception, betrayal, nudity.
Well, that's going to surprise you. That's a movie that I brought.
Oh, surprise. What?
So I've got a streak going.
Okay.
They're both excellent movies. I'm not going to tell you which one you didn't pick because I know it
may end up back.
Again.
Yep.
But we're going to watch a little movie called The Disappearance of Alice Creed, which is a very small movie about a kidnapping and who's being kidnapped and why and what happens next. And it is a very tight little British thriller.
Oh.
And I think that it is very underseen. It does have people in it that you will recognize. And it's just a really little good firecracker of a movie. The Disappearance of Alice Creed, which by the way is a great title.
Yeah, it's a great title. And I think you said there's some nudity in this one, maybe?
Yes, there is. There's some nudity. And I want to be clear, it does not involve any showering.
Thank you.
Or
I got a little
hose rubbing or any of that stuff.
I obviously, this has come after that. Yeah, maybe. Yes, I have some PTSD from what you're talking about. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. This
is closer to what you found as far as the actual nudity itself in Reform School Girls than in 1313 Cougar Cult. So excellent. I think you'll be fine with that. Good. It has nudity, but it's just a good movie.
Oh, I can't wait. Enjoy it. Listen, your choices so far, your choices have been good. The ones my choices of your films, I'm enjoying those. So far, so good. Good. See what happens.
Well, even movies that we all are not thrilled with, I think we've had good conversations. Yes. So let's just keep doing it.
Very good. Very good. And by the way, I highly recommend Buffalo 66 out there. This really should be taken a look at. I think as his first film, I don't know. I like I said, he hasn't done much after this one. I know Brown Bunny came out and didn't do so well, but Jesus, this one is really good. So I'm glad I saw it.
All right. I'm glad you saw it too.
Well, listen, have a safe week. Enjoy some Cult. And we'll see everybody soon.
See you, buddy.
Okay, see ya.